Welcome back to the Call It podcast. This is Jen reporting live for duty. I'm so excited today. I'm going to be interviewing my first person on the podcast. Say hi.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Gale. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again.
You too. I'm so happy to have you on here.
And I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good. A little background info. Gale and I graduated from UMD together last May, which is crazy. It's already been a year. Wow, so much has happened.
Time flies.
It really does.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to have you on here. Gale was always one of my favorite people in school. So full circle moment.
That's so sweet. Yes, it really does feel like that.
Yeah,
You know.
I agree. Okay, so I want you to give me a little intro about yourself. Could you tell me your full name?
Oh, like a full name?
Or what you go by, what you use.
I can give you the full name because I love it. I made it myself.
Mm-hmm.
My full name, Gale Renee Fern Claude St. Rose. Isn't that artful?
That. It is so artful.
Yeah.
And, well, Gale and I both went to school for graphic design. So you're a very artsy person. A very fitting name. I love that.
One of them is named after one of my favorite artists. Their name's Claude Cahoon.
Oh.
They're like early 20th century, like genderqueer, like...
Oh, cool.
Like I kind of sometimes call them like a proto-trans artist.
Okay.
They created like queer gender identity exploring art through photography on an island in the English Channel during a Nazi occupation. So it's pretty intense stuff. And like they make some like incredibly like evocative imagery.
I bet.
Exploring like a sort of thing that a lot of people think of as new nowadays, but like I can reach through history and say hi to Claude.
You're going to need to remind me the name of this person after the episode because I need to deep dive into that.
Yeah, man. They're
that
cool.
That sounds so
They're
cool.
really cool.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Building off of that, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Plymouth, Minnesota.
Okay.
From where I'm sitting right now, it never really felt like home.
Okay.
But here in Duluth, like it feels like I'm home now.
I love that.
I'm sure you guys can share the sentiment.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people here have that sentiment. I like went to school in Plymouth, went to University of Minnesota, Minneapolis College, and like never felt the vibe, never fell into like the stream of like going right into just, you know, finding day job sort of situation and photography, which is what I studied. So I moved up here and ended up going to the graphic design program that we met.
Thank God.
Thank goodness, for real. And I'm all the better for it. Honestly, Duluth has a way of transforming people. And it certainly transformed me.
Yes, I would agree with myself completely. I love that you said that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, what are your pronouns?
My pronouns are they, she, he, in that order. All are correct, none are incorrect. Just order of preference.
Awesome. Cool. Glad we got that out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you went to Minneapolis College. Is that correct?
Yes. The whole story goes, little baby Gale graduated high school in 2015 and then went to UMD for my first year for marketing and graphic design. Thought that I wanted to do computer science instead. So I went to Maine U to study computer science and flunked out like terribly. And my dad just sort of got me a camera for like Christmas that year as a gift. And then, you know, the subsequent year, I think it was like 2017, he just suggested that go to community college to, you know, try something out with, you know, low stakes. Like I was at rock bottom and I had no other options. I did have other options, but what better option did I have? So I studied at what was then called Minneapolis Community and Technical College.
Okay.
My like really landed in my element. A lot of the program was like really creative and technically driven.
Okay.
So it really satisfied all the little parts of my brain that I like to scratch. Because ever since I was a kid, I loved to play with computers. My dad was a huge computer nerd. And so my love of tinkering with electronics and stuff kind of led into studio photography as the niche that I sort of landed in when I was there. Just because, you know, there's all those gadgets and goodies and fun little, you know, pieces of equipment that are prohibitively expensive, but it's so fun to play with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then I graduated spring of 2020, the best time in the world for everyone,
Perfect.
shortly before moving to Duluth in like August of 2020, and then starting school at UMD,
Wow.
where I spent 3 wonderful years. And
I'm glad you feel that way because
yeah.
I loved my time at UMD as
Me
well.
too.
And I feel like
our program was pretty rad.
I agree. And I loved like all of our fellow peers as well. We had a really cool group.
A lot of your experience when you're going through higher ed completely depends on the people who you're around.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's no guarantee that you're going to become friends with everyone.
Right.
And there's no guarantee that you're going to have enough time to be friends with everyone.
Agreed.
Which felt very apt for us because it's like our class, I feel like we didn't start to click until like end of junior, like senior year.
Yeah.
Right as curtain call was coming.
Yeah,
right?
Right. Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people graduated early too, but we don't need to get into
Yeah.
the thick of all that.
Yeah.
I'm happy you also had a great experience at UMD. I feel like a lot of people also had a really great experience at UMD. So it's good that we collectively had a good experience. Okay. I'm going to do the hard hitters right now. Are you ready,
I'm
Gale?
ready.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color right now? Oh.
You can be as specific or unspecific
I was
as you
say
want.
like fuchsia or mauve or something.
Ooh, fuchsia.
I've been liking like grayish colors, like a really gray blue or a really gray purple. So like mauve, I feel like is the kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay.
You know,
super cool. Mauve is such a great answer.
Mauve. It sounds like a very old-timey name to me too.
It kind of does.
You know, alongside
that.
Marge, sort of. You know.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, second hard-hitting question. Are
you
ready? What is your favorite thing about art? And then follow-up, design, or both?
Okay, that's a proper hard-hitting question. Favorite thing about art, it's limitless potential. Like, just in the way, like, so let me start answering this in a very strange way. I fell in love with, like, astronomy, and so much that I took basically the same course at 2 different colleges. I took an astronomy course at UMD, an astronomy course at the U of M in my freshman and sophomore year. Why? I thought stars were cool. And the thing I loved the most was just like the unit where we talked about how the universe is, to our knowledge and observation, like functionally, like, it's limitless. And it just feels like a really like apt metaphor for just like art is like an outpouring of like the human condition. We put ourselves on paper to start a canvas, whatever medium, it doesn't matter. But like, I just love that anyone who gets the proper tools that they're comfortable with can create something new and unique and special. There's nothing about what they make that's wrong.
I love that. I know we don't have a video recording, but that just puts such a smile on my face. I'll touch more on this later, but one of the reasons why I feel like I gravitated towards you so much in school is because you had such a unique perspective, and that just showcased it perfectly. That was such a beautiful poetic way of wording why you love something, and that is just beautiful to me.
Thanks, Jen.
I don't think you could have answered that any better.
Your follow-up, design.
Yeah, design.
I mean, I don't know if I have as many like poetic things to say about design.
Sure.
Because my perspective on design, as opposed to like art broadly, design feels a lot more like functional, and a lot more like it's a tool. I think the most special aspect of design is it's like kind of latent and very, hidden, like ability to communicate.
Yeah.
Like to tell a message, to tell a story, rather. I just think about like how a lot of my most like favorite mentors always talked about like communicating clearly through design. See Matt Olin.
Yeah. Oh, he was one of my favorites
boy.
as well.
Yeah. I think when it comes to design, I have more like bones to pick than I do with just broadly speaking art, because it feels like in my place working as a commercial photographer, like I see a lot of content where people talk about right and wrong, where people lay down rules and they try to sell you something in the end, right? Where there's a lot of like you're trying to make a buck, right? And I get everybody's trying to make their buck. I'm not gonna hate on anybody for that. But with design in particular, I feel like the field of design in the current year, 2024, it feels a little saturated with people, and especially with talking heads on like the internet.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Alex and I talk about that quite frequently.
Yeah. And so with that, I think comes like a bit of a problem area, in my opinion, where you have people who are coming into the field of design with great like wants to tell stories for whomever, does not really matter. But there are people who are essentially, I don't want to say that they're trying to tell you that you're wrong, but there's a lot of, there's a lot more space for like negative feedback for somebody to convince themselves that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I totally see your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's not to say that the field of art doesn't suffer from that as well. In general, I think a lot of like just creative spaces, whether it's just for fun or professionally or anything in between, suffers from kind of an issue of like people trying to tell others that they're wrong. And that often comes with an ulterior motive. Sadly, that means that somebody's trying to sell a product,
right?
Because I don't think people need that sort of stuff. Like when I say it's an outpouring of the human condition, art, you already have everything you need right in here, up here, right here, with your eyes, your head, your heart, and your soul. That's all you need to tell a beautiful story.
I love that.
I like how I just said that I wouldn't have a poetic answer. And then
That's what I was just going to say. You're like, I don't want to get poetic here. I'm not going to get poetic, but it's all in your heart
very
and
poetic.
soul. I love that. I agree, though. I think especially in the general art field, there's a lot more ability, or people are like going to less harshly criticize you. But in the design world, it's specifically for a function, right? You're communicating a message. So I think that makes people want to tear it apart a little more, or say like, you could do that better, do this.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing when it comes from a good place.
Yeah,
like having
agreed.
people around you who you can approach with the stuff you're working on and be like, what do you think? Just give me your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Like that's incredibly valuable. For it to, it's just the internetification of everything, where suddenly everybody's trying to, easy way to score a buck online is to put somebody down.
Yeah.
To create outrage, those outrage dollars,
They're there.
big money.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, one last really, really difficult, hard question.
I'll give you the most poetic answer you've ever heard.
Honestly, you might. I want to know, what is one thing in your life that has been making you happy recently?
Oh, my people, everyone. Oh my gosh, that's such a broad answer, but it's all of my people. That includes you two.
Oh.
And you, because you're right here in front of me now. Alex, because we've become friends across the bar at 190. I serve Alex coffee
all the
for
time.
all of our listeners. And, being a barista, it's like, it's the best thing in the whole goddamn world. Am I allowed to swear?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Speak your mind.
Cool. That was light. I got to start with the light hitters.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's really wonderful because I get to do a job that essentially serves as socializing at the same time. I think I've talked to you about this a couple times across the bar of like every day I go to work and I work my physical body and my mental and social body by making like great coffee for my friends. And like not everyone I serve is going to be my best friend, but damn it, there are going to be my homies who come through.
Absolutely.
And I am going to shout their name so that the whole cafe hears me.
I love that.
Every time they walk in. And it's just, not only does it strengthen bonds between people, it offers connections for like personal and like business ventures. It's everything.
It hits all the different spots. You're working, so obviously you're making that move.
That money.
Of course. But you're making those connections too. You never know who you're going to run into.
Exactly.
Every time I run into you at 190, it's like, Jen! Gale! Like running up and hugging each other, chatting for a bit. I love that. And I feel like even just sitting there watching you interact with customers if I'm working, that story is so true. You definitely like try to make everyone your friend, or like
Yeah.
at least have a good
A friendly
moment.
interaction. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's a really important thing. That's like, I'm in a stage of life where I'm I'm a service worker, like full time. I'm a professional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a professional barista, like full stop. And I'm not going to hold back in calling myself that, because service workers are professionals. They do incredibly hard work, both physically and mentally, and they deserve more money, not just tips. Like tipping is great. But damn it, every single person who works any sort of job providing you food or drink or anything is working way harder than you think and is getting paid way less than they should be.
Agreed.
That being said, I think also the capacity of like service people to just make somebody's day better is really like under considered. That like I can tell when people are having bad days. People, whether they're trying to be sly or not, they're not as sly as they think.
Mm-hmm.
And people aren't good at hiding their emotions fully. And if somebody's having a bad day, I'm going to do what I can to make it better, make them feel special and feel seen. Even beyond that, it's like you can find out so much about somebody by being their barista, because people just want to talk. People just want to talk, period.
Yeah, period. I've seen that too, yeah.
As a self-proclaimed yapper, I can speak with authority here, despite the fact that I think you should question all authorities. I'm an authority on saying that people just want to yap. It is true.
I love that.
I forgot where this question started.
What makes you happy
What makes me
right
happy?
now? Yeah.
Yes. To circle it right back to your question, it's the people like that I'm able to meet, the people's days I'm able to make better, and also the creative, artistic business ventures that I'm able to create with the people that I met. Because pretty much everything I'm doing right now is thanks to somebody who I've served coffee to, which is really, really fucking cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
And I just wish everybody had that sort of opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people out there who are doing cool stuff, but it's like to get yourself in front of the people who need your stuff, that's tough, you know? Because otherwise, like I'm doing easy mode. They come to me because I make them coffee.
Right.
And every professional needs coffee, except for my lovely people who drink decaf. Shout out to Steph. If she listens, she knows who she is.
Shout out, Steph. I hope you're listening, lady.
Yeah, because damn it, I love when you roll in and always get your decaf. Faithful to your decaf.
Shout out, Steph. You heard it here. Thankful for the decaf. I love it. Before we get into like the actual interview,
Wait, we haven't gotten to the actual interview yet?
No.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? You must be sweating over there. We're getting tough.
Cracking open the LaCroix that I brought.
Oh, you should have like opened it in the mic for some ASMR.
Shit.
We could have made some big money off of that.
Shoot. Well,
God.
I just have nice image of me double fisting my drinks over here.
I love it. There we go. We're putting that on the Instagram. Hell yeah. Well,
caffeinated on one side, decaf in the other.
You gotta have balance, right? Before we get into like the actual art, design, culture, world-related questions, I want to give a little disclaimer. Gale and I know each other. We're obviously friends. This is going to be a friendly conversation. We're talking about things we're passionate about. We're also going to talk about maybe some world issues, things going on in our country, things going on in our lives. You know, we're just going to hit a lot of areas, and these are our opinions. This is my opinion. This is Gale's opinion. It might not be representative of every single person listening to this. If our opinion differs, that's cool. It's cool to have different
That's very
opinions.
normal.
Yeah.
That's incredibly normal.
Agreed.
My opinion is not the expressed opinion of Call It Podcast or Poppin' Dot. Neither.
It's
just
Gale's
mine.
opinion. Exactly.
You can send the flack my way. I'll chat. Like I said, I'm a yapper. I do it for a living.
Certified yapper.
Certified yapper.
That's our title. Interview with certified yapper.
Honestly, go for it.
I love it.
I think that's my best qualification.
I don't know about that, but
most title-worthy qualification. Like everything else is very straightforward. Like I'm just drawing blanks on what to call myself for a title anyways. Commercial photographer. Yawn. Certified yapper. Woo!
Yeah. That does sound pretty. What did you said a word earlier? Internetification.
Internetification. I just made that up.
That's
I don't know if somebody's
internetific. kind.
Internetified.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love it. Perfect. We touched on this a little bit before, but ever since we started this podcast and Alex and I were throwing around the ideas of interviewing people, getting different artist perspectives, and not just artists, but just people that we want on here, Chad, and we want perspectives, I've always thought of you as a guest that I wanted to have on here. High,
that really
top
touches.
priority of my list.
That's very touching.
We need a certified yapper. You know?
Here
like,
I am.
Gotta be on there. And Gale is the perfect person. I also mentioned before that we went to school together. I've always admired your perspective on art. We did a final project in Matt Nolan's class where we did the final posters.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to get into the specifics, but
yeah.
you did a piece on like gender,
Yes.
right?
Oh man, lots of my pieces have to do with gender.
Yes,
It's
which
very...
we will get into.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
I've always admired that you put yourself into your art and it really shines through, which I love always. Yeah, I just think you have a really cool perspective on art and design. So getting into that, I would like to know if you would feel comfortable telling us a little bit about the art you like to create and what kind of fuels your fire, or what also drives that passion to just create in general.
Well, what fuels my fire a lot is, honestly and candidly, a lot of it is rage. Like, I'm very angry at the world at large and stuff that's outside of my control. I can be a touch of a control freak sometimes when I try to make myself a very informed person, because I think being an informed person can like just make you a better person.
Absolutely.
Full stop. But also, like, as an artist, can like really help broaden your perspective and like help you keep like intersectionality in mind when like creating art. You know, just as a like non-binary trans person, like I can't not be informed and not feel some kind of rage without kind of gaslighting myself into telling myself that everything is fine. Because states all around the country are introducing legislation meant to curtail our autonomy, our ability to, you know, access public spaces, notably like bathrooms and like medical facilities for like gender affirming treatment. And so that really fills me with a lot of rage. And I think a lot of what fuels the attacks on trans people is fundamentally misunderstanding, at the very least from the wide support for these types of legislation. A lot of the reasons why people can end up supporting them is because they just don't know. Like, they've never met a trans person in their life. They don't know what it means to be trans, what it feels like to be trans.
Right.
And they don't know what someone has to go through being trans. And I think that the trans experience is honestly not unique. Like, we're in a process of, we as in trans people, we're in a process of self-creation, of rediscovery. It's like a second childhood is what I keep calling it. I still feel like a child because I feel like I'm only like 4 years old now. But like, our experiences are unique and interesting and worth knowing about. But at the same time, like, they should be so average. I really don't think that the lives of and experiences of trans people should be something so special that it's glorified or tokenized.
Sure.
I think that people should learn about what it means to be trans to the point where it's just a normal thing. Just like the idea of coming out is only so special because it's a deviation from the normal. I just did air quotes. As gay, lesbian, trans, bi, etc., anything, a coming out is only a coming out because it's seen as a deviation from the norm. The fact that you mentioned the poster that I made, I think is really significant, because that piece was like just an attempt for me to try and get people to like listen to both the desperate cries that I tried to like to scream to get people to notice what's going on with trans people like around the country, what the sort of legislation that has been enacted and is currently impacting trans folk and their families. And also, hidden beneath the really loud, bold red text is me talking about my experience, and just like I give a very specific detail in there of the medication that I take every week. Women who are on birth control take the same medication as I do. I'm not that different, y'all.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
When I learned that was the case, that my partner and I were taking the same medication, I was just like, whoa, okay, so when I take it, it's a problem. When you take it, well, it's still seen as a problem to some, but for different reasons. Yeah.
Sure. I love that.
Certified yapper.
Certified yapper. I love that you're so passionate about that as well. Like you said, like we're not trying to tokenize on people's experiences. This is just you sharing you.
Yeah.
And I love that you just feel so comfortable to do that here because, like you said, in a lot of spaces, many people can't.
Yeah.
So I love that we're here and you're able to share.
I feel safe and comfortable.
Good.
Shout out Pop and Dot. Shout out Call It Podcast.
There we go.
Cultivated in a very comfortable environment.
Shout out, but we're already here.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What do they call that? It's like shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Listen to my podcast.
Hey, y'all heard of this podcast called Call It? You should listen.
Call It Podcast. Just to loop around that question one more time. So clearly that fuels your fire to create. I want to hear a little bit about the art you like to create. You've mentioned photography.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little about that? What do you like to shoot? What are your favorite things?
I'm a trained studio portrait photographer by trade. What that allows me is it allows me to let out my control freak, because I mean, like I've got in front of myself here, there are like lights that are, lighting us up in a very controlled way. Being in a studio allows me to essentially have just my imagination as the limit. The content that I like to photograph the most, it comes down to portraits always, and it also comes down to stuff that's like purposeful and informed. A result of that is that my output is very, very low, mostly because I lack the space currently. I used to use the UMD shoot studio constantly, holler at Kristen Pless.
Oh, I love her.
Kristen so much.
One of our professors at UMD.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
Freaking
Teaches
amazing.
photography. Wonderful mentor. Yeah, so I use that space a lot, and it lifted the need for, space and equipment off my shoulders. But now, as I'm currently sitting here, don't have a space, have my equipment, just kind of waiting for the right time to get in and make stuff. There is a series of photographs that I one day soon hope to make that expands on a piece that I have made that I titled David, the Clay of Our Own Creation. I think you saw it at ASE.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tenley Gage, my wonderful model. And the long and the short of that piece is just that it's kind of an appropriation of a classical Renaissance sculpture of Donatello's David. My piece, I aim to sort of, I always want to make people think about what they're looking at, to not just to look at the pretty picture and move on. And with that piece in particular, I want people to think about a Renaissance sculpture that they see, where the Renaissance is so built around the ideal human, the ideal masculine and feminine, both. And that is found in a lot of the Renaissance sculptors and painters. And Donatello's David stuck out to me because he made David look like a little femboy.
To put it plain and simple.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, what a genderqueer icon.
Yeah.
That guy took down Goliath. That guy took down, I can't say it. That guy took down Goliath with a little sling. That's so cool. I want to kind of take on that aspect of this interesting confluence of gender, and to just take that alongside my, genderqueer friend Tenley as my model, and for us to make a piece together that's about being able to sculpt yourself. And that's why their foot is on this mound of clay where Goliath's head would have been.
Yeah.
Where it's sculpting, you've conquered the ability to sculpt yourself. So that project is one that is first on my list, is to grab more of these Renaissance paintings and sculptures that people know and they remember in such a way, and to turn them on their head, to cast my queer people in these places of that are stand-ins for the ideal, right?
Yeah.
Because, at some point in our vast history as humans, that may have been seen as an ideal, a genderqueer body, one that is neither masculine nor feminine, nor something speakable in between. It's something unnameable and unplaceable. Schrodinger's gender, if you will. To summarize, it's studio photography is my way to craft the perfect little scene, to tell the perfect little story for me. But on the opposite end of the spectrum from that, I love collage.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, the best gift I was ever given was a 10, 20-pound box of National Geographic magazines from my friend Laura. She just got it at a garage sale. And because I mentioned that I like collage once, she got a $5 box that was probably 20 pounds.
Wow.
Just had 4 Gale and big pink chalk marker on the top. And I've had it ever since. It's probably like 3 years old. And I still go through and snip out, little pieces here and there and just put it together just for fun.
That is so cool. I'm so jealous of that, especially to just like readily have those materials accessible. I love collage. I think it is such a cool art form, but the issue with me, at least, we're going to talk about Jen for a moment.
Yeah, let's go
My
to you, Jen.
issue is I don't have like readily accessed materials, That obviously makes collaging really hard. For those who aren't in the artistic world, you need things to
make
collage.
the stuff.
You need paper, make collage.
You need thing to make stuff.
Exactly. You get me.
Yeah, I get you.
I love it. I love that you love collage, though.
I love it too because it's so simple and it's like I said, the opposite end of the spectrum from
Right.
like a very complicated technical like studio situation, and it just feels like very much like in every person's art hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You need glue and you need something
You
that you're
need
cutting.
glue.
You just need glue, pretty
Need
much.
glue, need paper, make collage.
Take thing, make stuff. We're simple.
Exactly.
Here.
Artists
We're,
are simple people,
yeah,
guys.
we are
I've been
simple
trying to
people.
tell you.
The art speak is all fluff.
It is.
It always is. We're just trying to create value in the art by just talking big talk. I mean, real talk, isn't it? Isn't all the art just like perceived value is a thing I'm thinking about a lot, especially doing photography, like commercial photography, where it's just like, I don't know how to price my time. I don't know how to I know how to price my time more than I know how to price my expertise.
The work. Oh, yeah.
Like, what does expertise cost? That's a little easier to answer than what does art cost? That's so arbitrary, right?
Right.
Because like it's all just, it's a lot of it's built around reputation. In the traditional art world, like you took art classes,
Mm-hmm.
and did you ever have a class with Ryuta?
No, but he was my advisor.
Okay, yeah, then you know how he's just so in the like art world. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a whole different track that you can go down. That's all about. Honestly, I want a disclaimer. I don't know what it's all about. I only know what it's about from secondhand, but I know a lot of it is about gallery spaces.
Oh, yeah.
And building like reputation. To build a reputation as a fine artist, honestly, to build a reputation as anybody, you kind of got to just make shit up. We're all making shit up. I don't want to just single out my fine artists, really. I'm going to walk that back. Love my fine artists because they're making shit up better than anyone.
Period.
That's
agree.
my express opinion.
Gale's opinion.
Yeah.
This is Gale's podcast, everybody.
All right, guys. This is Gale It, where we talk about Gale's opinions.
That's the episode name. I love it. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to take it back a little bit into something that we've talked about just a smidge, not a ton, but the year is 2024. For those who are listening in the future, it's 2024. There are so many different people in this world, right? As we've discussed, we have people who feel more and more comfortable than probably ever before to openly discuss queer, gender, political, and any other forms of identification or how you would recognize a person. I would like to know, and you can go as deep or as shallow, I suppose, as you want to talk about this, whatever you feel comfortable.
Cool.
But I would like to know, how do you feel your personal identity influence the themes and subjects of your work? We've talked about that you're a queer person, so dive into that. But do you feel a responsibility or like a certain responsibility to represent certain aspects of your identity in art? Do you feel like you need to, or is it something that you just genuinely want out there?
That is such a good question, Jen.
It's a really in-depth question.
Yeah, that was so good. Okay, now that I'm done marveling, 1,000%, like completely.
It is.
Yeah,
your
it
work.
is. Yeah, I don't think there's a piece of art that I've made that isn't directly about, or at the very least isn't like heavily informed by myself being queer. And not just being queer, but like by being queer in a way that like doesn't always match with what people expect
Sure.
from queer people. Like I identify as gender fluid. Like I am gender fluid. Let me say that. I am gender fluid.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I use they, she, he pronouns, because it's like it all works for me, right? And so like when somebody experiences a sort of intersection of somebody talking about me and me being there, like we all code each other and judge each other right when we see each other, it doesn't always land in the sort of like boxes that we have readily available in our head. I don't land in people's boxes sometimes, just like other people, other gender pioneers have not landed in my boxes in a previous time in my life. Kind of to jump onto the second part of your question,
Yeah.
I feel a responsibility to exude, if nothing else, queer joy. Because queer stories oftentimes are not written by queer people, are not made by queer people, and center tragedy and trauma, which is a very, big part of a lot of our lives. There's oftentimes quite a lot of rejection from family or friends or both. I think that just going through life and being a good and happy person, like an art in and of itself, like it's performance art. Because what's performance art? I don't know. We're all you're born and everything after that is drag. I cannot remember who said that, but I know that is a quote from someone. I know RuPaul quoted that person.
Yeah, sure.
But I cannot for the life of me remember who it is. It's so true that we're all just kind of acting in a way that's comfortable to us, right? And so for those of us who are operating outside of a, very binary world, it's kind of I don't want to say duty, because that puts the expectation on other queer people who may or may not be comfortable or able to put themselves out there, but it feels like, especially in, like, to me, a responsibility to be happy and to tell stories about being happy as well as being really fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Right now, the want is to focus on the happy, because the world can kind of suck.
For sure.
And we hear a lot of really shitty stuff because happy things don't make good headlines, right? At the very least, like a little bit of art that inspires joy, makes somebody smile, like makes somebody feel a little bit better about themselves. And I think that can be something as huge as like a exhibition at the Guggenheim, and something as small as a sticker you slap on a pole walking around downtown.
Right. Going back to what we were talking about before with your job as a barista, even something as simple as giving somebody a coffee. And just,
yeah,
you probably see a lot of the same people whenever you're working, regulars, some might say. So being a part of that regular routine every day, you're probably just providing a couple moments of joy for somebody's day. And just
if I can be at least the only, if not the first, then if I can be like at least someone that says hello to them and asks them how their day is going,
yeah,
like that's great. And like everyone deserves good attention like that,
Yeah.
And everyone deserves a little heart on their latte too. The way people respond to me putting little hearts on their latte is huge, and just makes me think about how like I am doing art every day. You
really are.
Latte art. I mean, it's in the name.
In more ways than just that, though.
Yeah.
Like, kind of what you were saying. We're born, and then everything else is just drag.
Yep.
You're kind of putting on that barista performance,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a pretty exhausting performance, I'll say.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I don't want to imagine because I know you guys go through a lot and some
We
people are not
work.
very nice to you.
I gotta say, at our cafe, it's pretty small,
Good.
thankfully.
Yeah.
We get some stinkers, but then we just sort of chat shit about them behind the bar. I want to say, disclaimer, we do not chat shit about everybody. It's just part of baristas talk, okay? If you're in a really, really bad mood and you're mean to somebody, people will talk about it. Like, that goes beyond baristas. Service industry in general, yes.
Alex and I talk about how I worked at Ulta and she worked at Sephora all the time. I get it, Gale.
People just sometimes are in a bad mood, and unfortunately that means that your impression of them is just wholly negative. And that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. But like, I want to give grace to people. I want to give grace to people to be able to have bad days also. When it starts to really affect somebody else, then I start to get a little mama bear. There have been times when I've wanted to really interject and like throw people out. But, that's not always my style.
No, I would never.
Peacemaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Something that kind of ties into what you've mentioned is, I'm going to give a little quote that I remember you saying all the time in college. And it's probably not a direct quote, but the way I remember it
the vibe is enough,
Yes. I don't remember. I think the first time I heard you say it was in Matt Olin's class. And I think we were talking about like what we want to do after college. And you said, my dream isn't to work. I just want to garden. There was more to it.
Oh my gosh.
But you would say that all the time. And I would always be like, guys, this person has it figured out. Like, come on. I love this.
I am honestly so honored that you remembered that.
That stuck with me.
That quote is the heart of it, really.
It is. I love it. But it's also it's everything that you've been talking about today, I think. But it really speaks to the perspective that I know you have of making art that you're proud of, things that you love, things that make you happy, things that are representative of yourself. And there's this perspective of make art because it's fun and it allows you to express yourself, not just to be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I know you feel really passionate about the concept of good art.
Oh, gosh,
and
yeah.
In air quotes, good art.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, gents, and
heavy air quotes.
Exactly. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen and others is a nice one.
Others.
David Bowie said that one time.
I like that. Ladies, gentlemen, and others.
Yes.
Putting that in the brain, like the garden quote, so I can refer back to it.
Definitely make sure that's what he said.
Well,
because if you can touch on David Bowie,
even if he
people will love
didn't
it.
say it, I think that's a perfect way.
Yeah.
So, love it. Can you talk about the concept of good art and what is the air quotes good art?
Well, I'm really going to show my like personal outlook on the world in the answer of this question. That's what y'all brought me here for.
I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, Gale.
I'm going to give it to you unfiltered. When I think of good art, I think of art that isn't like necessarily made to be provocative or to like tell a message or to illuminate a perspective or struggle. I think of art that's made with the sole intent of making money, where it's soulless, right?
Right.
I genuinely believe that as soon as your artistic venture departs from the love of it and wanting to evoke an unspeakable part of yourself, unspeakable not because it is wrong to speak it, but because words cannot do it justice. Like, as soon as you forego all of that to just turn art into a commodity, I think that's when you start to, it loses the soul of art. And I think good art, heavy air quotes, when I think of good art and bad art, I think of that where it's sort of like judging it based on, not on the like individual merits of what an artist did, like, or where this came from out of the artist. Yeah, I just think that like as soon as you turn art into a commodity, like completely, fully, it loses its soul, which is what I think the whole good art versus bad art thing is. Because it's like, I firmly believe that you cannot objectively label something good art or bad art in a way that is like still being like honest about yourself and your experience with the art, I think it's just the wrong words.
Yeah.
Good and bad doesn't do it justice.
What makes
at
something
all.
inherently good or what makes
it's
it
a
bad?
complete moral, or like, yeah, it's a complete moral judgment on something that is unjudgeable from that perspective.
For sure.
Because it's not as though everyone else's like opinions of good or bad will align with yours. You can 1,000% say that you didn't connect with it, that you didn't, honestly, you can just say you didn't vibe with it or you didn't like it.
Right.
Like you can like and dislike art. I don't think casting a judgment of good art or bad art is valid.
I would agree with you because it completely takes away the art, in my opinion. We kind of talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the episode, but art is whatever people want to make it. Art is completely based on the person who created its experiences, but not only that, it is the experience of the person who is interacting with it as well.
And that's key, because like the person who makes it and the person who experiences it, it's like it's yin and yang. You're making up two parts of the same whole.
Exactly.
I mean, it starts to get into an interesting question that I think I have had conversations about, of like, is art still art if it isn't experienced? If you don't show it to anyone, if nobody looks at it aside from yourself. And I think I just sort of got to my conclusive opinion on that, where I think can be a full circle within yourself, where the art can start and the art can end with you, making a silly little collage.
Yeah.
And then going and appreciating it and then throwing it into your bonfire. And,
yeah.
And then there, it's done forever.
I have never heard of that conversation before, or like even, heard it or experienced that.
Yeah.
I feel really strongly about that, even though this is something that's like literally just coming into my head.
Yeah.
But I would totally say that it's still art, even if you're not showing people. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I've gone through a lot in the last year, and I've definitely made things that are solely for myself. Nobody will ever see them because it is just for Jen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just for me, Pookie. And it's so cathartic, and just letting those built up emotions and that fire that fuels me out for a second in a controlled environment still makes it art, because we're going to get so deep right now, guys. We're getting so deep. That is the premise of art, using your experiences and whatever makes you onto something, whether you present it to the world or whether you present it to yourself. You're getting that full circle moment.
Let it out.
I reckon.
You let it out.
Let it out.
Period. Yeah, art's a process, not a product, right?
Love.
Art is a process, not as a product.
Yes. I think that's the whole concept.
Yeah. And honestly, this kind of circles back nicely to what I was saying earlier about design. It's sort of the gripe that I've had with design personally, as somebody who really firmly believes in process over product, that like when I am doing the process of designing, it does feel very product oriented. And not to say that that's wrong. I'm not going to cast a value judgment on product oriented creation. We need to produce things,
right?
Period. But like for me as somebody who prefers to just enjoy the process of it, like it's a hard thing to reconcile, especially when like a paycheck is on the line.
For sure. Absolutely.
And like I'll be completely candid when I say that I've lost like gigs, I've lost contracts, like from getting too caught in my own head, like from the anxiety of the product oriented creation process, to the point where I was like, I need to go back to fucking therapy over this. And I did. And now I'm talking with my therapist about perfectionism, and it's really wonderful. It's actually really wonderful.
I have a book that we can talk after the podcast, but I'm going to lend you a book that I think you would really enjoy.
Cool.
I've talked about it on the podcast a lot. We don't have to dive into it again, but I'll lend it to you because I think you'd love it.
Thank you.
How do you maintain a sense of individuality and authenticity in a field that's constantly evolving and ever-changing, with new trends, new technology, the oversaturation on social media? How do you stay true to yourself?
That is a That's the hardest hitting one yet. I think I stay true to myself just by making stuff when I want to and on my own conditions, even if that means I'm making nothing process wise or product wise. It's a bit of like trust the process, because day to day, especially working service, it can feel just like eat, sleep, work, repeat, right?
Yeah.
Where it never feels like it ends. And I've had a few times recently where I'm like, am I seriously going to be doing this for the rest of my life? I can't keep doing this. And it's times like those where I feel like, first off, therapy is incredibly important. Everyone should be able to see a therapist, period, and be able to talk about stuff that's going on in their life. I want to lay the foundation there. On top of that, like making something when you want to, when you feel that urge to create something, even if it's just putting a few words on paper, like you're still creating something. It's like ideas that manifest in our brains, expressed through words, are like a form of art. When people like choose to divest themselves from the churning machine of social media, of content, then they're reclaiming what it means to make art and be an artist and to experience art from a machine. I don't say that lightly. Like, social media is a machine that gobbles up content and spits out trash.
Absolutely.
And for artists, like, it can become the most poisonous carrot on a stick, where you're chasing something that isn't yours, because the algorithms, whatever they are not human. They get stuff that you post there in front of humans, and that can be great. I think that's a positive thing with these platforms. But the way it incentivizes you to be less faithful to yourself and your own intuition, it leads down a path that leads to betrayal of your own. I feel like there's an inner child in there that's just like wants to work on their intuition.
For sure.
And wants to create stuff how they want, when they want, where they want. And as soon as you kind of hand the conditions, the reins over to an unthinking, unfeeling algorithm, you start to cede your individuality, your authenticity. So in short, I think being mindful of what you're making, of when and how you're making it, being mindful of how you're using social media as an artist, I think is really important for keeping it close to heart. Art loses so much of its goodness, its enriching nature when the authenticity starts to slip, because at the core of it, that's what's there. It's
right.
The authentic, you're expressing an authentic idea or perspective that's informed by who you are. Like we said before, all of your individual experiences inform, like, create who you are at that critical moment when you're making something, and you get to choose what it becomes after that. It's a sort of like, I'm making kind of an hourglass hand shape, where it's just like all the things are sort of leading up to who you are at that moment. And then after this moment where you're making art, you have all these choices of where the art can go.
That was so deep. That's so cliche to say, but like, I have a lot to think about with what you said.
Yeah.
One of the big takeaways, and one of like my favorite parts from that beautiful, creative, poetic answer that you just crafted, was doing art on your own time and when you feel it's right. I think even in the design world, not just the art world specifically, so much of it is forced.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in general, there's deadlines, so you have to force it. You have to create something.
Crunch time, baby. Yeah.
It is so hard to just, even as somebody who, I'm a graphic designer for a university, if this is your first time listening to Jen, hi. But I think there's just there's a huge aspect of the art world that is time. But I think, like you said, when you're doing it on your own time, how you want it, not forcing it, I think that's really where the good stuff comes from.
Yeah.
And not the good stuff in quotes like we were talking about earlier.
Where the most authentic stuff comes from.
Exactly.
Yeah, because, the stuff you want to make and feel compelled to for whatever reason, I think often becomes the best product.
It is going to be the
best
stuff.
result, I should say.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, also touches on something that's really important to me as just somebody who just has a low output. And that I think the conversation, Alex, that you and I had when you were talking about getting me on the podcast was me talking about not defining an artist, a creative, a designer by their output. We always sort of implicitly judge on the quality by our own standards, but to judge on the quantity, I think, is doing harm more than it does good. People need to do work to get more work, right?
Right.
You need to be able to show somebody something. But in order to do that, I think the next step is trusting somebody's authenticity and personality and drive. We need to trust in people, period. And not just scroll down their Instagram and be like, this is great eye candy.
Right.
I'm going to hire them. Like you could hire them and they turn out to be a nightmare. Or you can hire somebody with literally 0 pictures on their Instagram, such as myself. And they create gold. Not to say that I'm always going to create gold. I'm human, and to be human is to err.
I feel that.
I want to be like kind to myself and to believe that I can make great things, even though I haven't had loads of experience doing those things. You don't have to be a seasoned professional to make great stuff. You can feel things out, make mistakes, identify them, and then just do it again with renewed trust that you'll do it better. And that's just being human. And we all got to just give each other a little more grace. The world's a little too cutthroat for sensitive people like myself, I think.
I feel that. I'm very sensitive too. Gale, this has been a pleasure.
An utter pleasure.
Like, I've been trying to get this in the works for a minute, but I've been very busy.
We've
Everyone's
all been very busy.
Yes.
It's summertime in Duluth, baby.
No, literally.
It is the busy season.
Yeah. I am just so happy that we finally got you on here. I think this was a fucking awesome episode.
Thanks for saying that.
Like,
I've been sitting here yapping the whole time thinking, is this going to be good? Is this great?
No, we crushed this. Thank you for being my first interviewee on the podcast.
Anytime.
Do you have any closing things that you would like to say before we leave?
Oh, man, I don't know if there's anything to say that I haven't said yet. Trust in yourself, trust in others, be true to yourself. Don't try to be somebody else because you are the only person who can be good at being you.
I love that. I don't have anything to add. That was amazing. Do you want to say goodbye with me?
Are we going to do like a 3, 2, 1?
Ready?
3, 2, 1.
Bye.